Hello my friends, today we will take a look at the comparison of my favorite small cameras. DJI Osmo Pocket, Canon G7X Mark III, GoPro Hero 7 Black and DJI Osmo Action. I started to appreciate small cameras a lot in the past couple of months. I still use full-frame Sony a7 III as my main camera, but I think that compact cameras have their place in different types of productions. For me, small cameras are all about the creative options. Being able to take the camera anywhere, mount it anywhere or just have it on me all time is often much more important than having the best image output from bigger camera. In this video we will take a look at the options that you have with each of these cameras. I will try to explain which one is the most suitable for different types of content and also how you can use these cameras together. Let's start with the physical aspects. G7X III is a classic point-and-shoot camera. It is the biggest and the heaviest camera out of these four, but in terms of the size, it is still closer to action cameras rather than most mirrorless cameras, which is why I've decided to include it in this comparison. The build quality is okay, despite that it is mostly made of plastics. It feels pretty solid and it is the most comfortable to use without added accessories. It also has command dials and more buttons than other cameras. Osmo Pocket has the lens and the sensor mounted on a tiny gimbal, and that is mounted on a small handle with screen, buttons and connectors. That makes it suitable for handheld shooting without additional accessories, but it also makes it more fragile because that gimbal is a precise device. That is why you need included case or some other accessory for transportation. Thanks to that shape, it is probably the most portable out of these cameras. The build quality is also very solid on the Osmo Pocket. Hero 7 Black and Osmo Action are both very well made. They are much smaller than point-and-shoot cameras and importantly, much more durable, which means that you can use them in rough conditions or even underwater. They are also the most suitable for mounting, but unfortunately neither has quarter-inch mount, so you have to use them with a cage or housing. The next thing that we will take a look at are the types of shots that you can get with these cameras. G7X III has 24 to 100mm full-frame equivalent zoom lens, which is probably the main advantage of point-and-shoot cameras in comparison with action cameras. That focal range is suitable for anything from landscapes on the wide end to portraits or semi-macro photography. It is not ultra-wide, which makes it a bit less suitable for vlogging. Osmo Pocket has fixed wide-angle lens with 26mm full-frame equivalent field of view. You can use it for landscapes, people, travel stuff and even for vlogging. In comparison with ultra-wide lenses on Osmo Action and GoPro, it produces more natural looking footage. GoPro and Osmo Action have ultra-wide lenses, which means that you can fit much more in your frame. Ultra-wide angle is very suitable for POV shooting and capturing as much of the scene as possible or for vlogging. Regarding the image quality, to my own surprise, I have to say that the best video quality has DJI Osmo Pocket. It shoots very nice 4K video with a lot of details. Especially for the size, it is pretty incredible what it can do, especially if you use DCI color setting. In normal picture style, the video looks good, but it is a bit over-sharpened like on all cameras in this comparison. Canon G7X III is the first Canon that can shoot oversampled 4K video. It also looks pretty good if you use the right settings. Having said that, the codec seems to be a bit weaker in comparison with other competitors. The video is not as detailed, so you need to use more sharpening to compensate for that, which doesn't look that great. Having said that, 4K video still looks very good in general. The colors are also very nice out of the camera. G7X III is also the only camera here that can't shoot 4K 60p, but it has larger sensors, so it is understandable. Bigger problem is the overheating. That happens mostly when you shoot longer 4K clips. If you shoot 1-minute clips, it will take a while before it overheats, but it will happen. Other three cameras have no problems with overheating. Osmo Action and Hero 7 Black have very similar image quality. Both are very over-sharpened with stock settings. If you set the sharpness to medium or low on Hero 7, the picture looks much more natural and very good overall. Over-sharpening was also fixed on the Osmo Action by firmware update. If you use DCI color setting on Osmo Action, it is not over-sharpened anymore and it looks very good. A huge advantage of Osmo Action over the Hero 7 Black is the dewarp feature that fixes the fisheye look associated with action cameras. GoPro can also do that in linear mode, but only up to 2.7K. Overall, I would say that image quality is slightly better on Osmo Action, mostly because of the dewarp feature. The video quality is generally very good on both. One area where the G7X III destroys the other three cameras are the stills. It has larger 1-inch sensor, a zoom lens and 20 megapixels instead of 12 megapixels on other three cameras. You can also get reasonable amount of background separation at longer focal lengths with the G7X III. Other three cameras are mainly video cameras, but both Osmo Pocket and Osmo Action are much better stills camera than the GoPro. Osmo Pocket and Osmo Action can shoot very detailed 12 megapixel stills with very nice colors. If you shoot RAW, both can capture a lot of details in both highlights and shadows. Osmo Pocket can also shoot 9-picture panorama shots that are processed in camera. Osmo Action can take 5-step exposure bracketing for HDR merging. GoPro takes reasonably detailed stills, but the problem is the distortion. That is fixed in camera with both Osmo devices, but it is very difficult to fix on the GoPro, and the Lightroom profile doesn't work well for that either. Another difference between these cameras is the autofocus. Hero 7 Black and Osmo Action don't use the autofocus, they have ultra-wide lens and f2.8 aperture, so the depth of field is so deep that everything is in focus all the time. Osmo Pocket has shallower depth of field, so it uses the autofocus. Face detection was enabled in the latest firmware update, and I can say that it works pretty well. The most important thing is that it won't start refocusing without reason like with older firmware versions. It is also 100% reliable if you use face tracking. In other situations it works pretty well, it may be slower if you focus from close distance to far distance, while the autofocus is still fine overall. The autofocus on Canon G7X III is not that great, but it is still usable. You can make it work, the face tracking is pretty decent, and touch to focus also works pretty well. It definitely won't match Sony hybrid autofocus, but if you know how to use it and you work with the autofocus, not against it, it is usable. I have talked about that in my G7X Mark III tips and tricks video, which will be linked in the description. Stabilization is in my opinion very important with all consumer cameras, because it can make a huge difference in overall look of your footage. Fortunately, all three devices have pretty impressive stabilization. I would say that the winner here is the Osmo Pocket. It is by far the most stable for panning and static shots, but the reason why I think that it has the best stabilization are the extra options that you get with the gimbal in comparison to electronic image stabilization or optical image stabilization. First of all, you can choose from 4 modes. You have the follow mode, tilt lock mode, and lock mode. I've explained those in my Osmo Pocket versus Osmo Action video. You can also use the controller wheel for very precise gimbal movements, so that is a big advantage. Osmo Pocket also has very impressive object tracking. You can select the object to follow by double pressing on the screen. It will also detect face in frame automatically, and it will start tracking person in the frame. It works extremely well. Another advantage of the Osmo Pocket is that you can control the gimbal remotely. That means that you can basically compose the shot using the smartphone app. The weakness of Osmo Pocket stabilization is the walking. Osmo Action and Hero 7 Black have very impressive electronic image stabilization. That is very good for reducing the shaking. Handheld shots from both look super smooth, and it can even smooth out the walking very well. Of course, both have to crop the image a lot to stabilize the footage. Osmo Action crops the footage a bit more, which may or may not be a disadvantage depending on the look that you prefer. Osmo Action is a bit smoother, but I would say that it is a draw between these two, because the Osmo Action has larger crop, and there is still a bit of lag when you have the rocksteady stabilization turned on, even though it got better with the latest firmware update. G7X Mark III has optical image stabilization, which is pretty effective, especially at 24mm, but it can't match the other cameras. It is not completely fair comparison, because it is much easier to stabilize ultra-wide footage. I am still very happy with G7X III stabilization, it makes a big difference in both stills and video. Regarding the handling, that is one of the biggest advantages of the G7X III in comparison with other 3 cameras. It has 2 command dials and enough buttons for all important features. It also has 3-inch touchscreen, which is much bigger and it works very well. The user interface is very good for a camera, but it doesn't quite match user interface on consumer devices. Both DJI cameras have great handling and user interface for the size. Despite the small screen on the Osmo Pocket, it is pretty easy to access all of the essential settings, and if you don't want to, you don't have to connect it to your smartphone at all. There are just 2 buttons on the Osmo Pocket, and you can add 2 more buttons on the controller wheel, which is in my opinion a must-have accessory for the Osmo Pocket. I have shown what it can do in my Osmo Pocket accessories video, which is also linked in the description. Osmo Action has larger 2.33-inch sensor. The user interface is great. You can very easily access all of the settings by swiping from the edges. The quick menu is very well structured as well, and I especially like the video settings tab, so big thumbs up for the user interface on Osmo Action. It also has quick switch button on the left side, and you can use that for switching the modes. GoPro has the worst user interface of these devices. The display is pretty small, the icons are small as well. Especially the Pro Tune menu could be better structured. It is not bad overall, you can get used to it, but it is definitely behind the other cameras in this comparison. GoPro is also the only one that doesn't have front-facing screen. On Canon you can just tilt the screen upwards and you can see yourself perfectly. On Osmo Pocket you can rotate the camera and see yourself on the screen as well. Besides that, it can also track your face, which works very well, and it is extremely useful for vlogging. On Osmo Action you can switch from the back screen to the front screen by holding the quick switch button, and you can see yourself there as well. The battery life is not great on either of these. I recommend having at least 2 spare batteries for every one of these, and a power bank for Osmo Pocket if you want to shoot for the whole day. Big disadvantage of Canon is that the NB13L batteries are extremely overpriced. They have similar capacity as GoPro and Osmo Action batteries, but they cost 3 times as much. Osmo Pocket has smaller battery, but it probably has the best battery life. The battery is non-removable though, so power bank is the best option on the go. So how does the Canon G7X Mark III stack up against 3 most popular small cameras? Because it has 24 to 105mm zoom lens and larger sensor, I would say that it is more versatile in some regards. On the other hand, it is larger and not as rugged as the other action cameras, and it can't shoot ultra-wide video, so it is less versatile in other ways. I would still say that it is the best main hybrid camera out of these, but also the worst B camera or special camera. For stills, it is by far the best out of these cameras, and it also destroys any smartphone. The thing is that other 3 action cameras can match G7X III video quality in most situations, and the Osmo Pocket can even surpass it. Having the G7X III for stills and video with narrower field of view in combination with one of the other 3 cameras also makes sense. Hero 7 and Osmo Action are currently the best action cameras on the market. They have great stabilization, very good image quality, they are rugged and waterproof. Importantly, they don't need the autofocus, which might be a big advantage in a lot of situations. They are definitely more suitable for action shooting, POV shooting, and tight spaces thanks to that ultra-wide lens. Both are very durable. I generally like both, but after the oversharpening was fixed on the Osmo Action, I might prefer that one over the GoPro. They are valid alternatives to 1-inch sensor compact cameras such as the G7X III if you are fine with ultra-wide angle lens. I'm not gonna lie, Osmo Pocket is still my most favorite camera out of these 4. It is the most interesting one. I prefer the gimbal over electronic stabilization or optical image stabilization. 80 degrees field of view suits my needs, it has the best video quality, the tracking is great, it is just a great camera in my opinion. So that's it for this video, thank you for watching, I hope that you liked this video and that you found it to be useful. Stay tuned for more videos and maybe consider subscribing if you don't want to miss my future content. I appreciate your feedback in form of thumbs up or thumbs down. If you would like to ask anything or share your opinion, please do so in the comment section, and see you next time.